There is Shabbos.
It is the 12th of May. Rabbi Furst, Parsha Hashavua, Bahar Bahalosaka.
Behukosai.
Behukosai. Thank you.
Behukosai, yeah. That's my Parsha.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you should be the expert.
No, after 80, no, not 80 years. After what's 13 from 80?
Maybe you remember the bar mitzvah. Maybe
Huh?
you remember the bar mitzvah drasha. You want to tell us a little bit about it if you want.
No.
Today I'm a fountain pen.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember basically nothing. I remember going up to the bimmer.
Yes.
I was saying everything quite well, and the only criticism was I was too soft.
Mm.
Could hear me, but I was still too soft.
That's okay. You did fine for yourself, Baruch Hashem.
Yeah, I had to do the whole lot. The Behukosai and the Haftarah.
Very good.
Yeah, and I remember none of them.
So
I didn't even know what I was saying.
We'll start here. It's the beginning of Behukosai, and yeah, let's start
67 years ago.
Yeah, Mazel Tov, very much.
Oh well. Okay.
Very first pasuk in Behukosai, that's in Tav Vav, pasuk Gimel.
Very first one in Behukosai, right?
Pasuk Gimel. In Behukosai Teleku, the S mitzvosai tishmaru, the sisem osam. If you will go in my statutes and you will guard my commandments and do them.
Okay, so if you look at the pasuk, it seems to be repetitive.
Well, hukim and mitzvos are different things,
right? So why should it be one is telecho and one is tishmuru, and then what's the last part of the pasuk? Vasisamosa, right? What's the asisamosa? What in light of the last two words of the pasuk vasisamoso, what is telecho supposed to mean, and what is tashmiru supposed to mean?
Well,
I mean, granted that they're two different things. Granted, a chok is a chok and a mitzvah is a mitzvah, right?
right.
First of all, why should a chok be telech, and why is a mitzvah tishmuru? And what are these two things in light of the last statement of the pasuk? Vasisamosam. So telech can't mean doing them, and tishmuru can't mean doing them, because you already said the last part is that you should do them.
Well, telechu is I think from the root of to travel.
Right.
So when my English says you'll observe I would think it would say you will go in my statutes.
If you walk in my ordinances, I've got here.
Right. And my commandments you will guard. And you will do them. So then there's three concepts here. There's going, there's traveling, there's guarding, and there's doing.
Good.
Traveling, I would say, is, you're making this a way of life. You're not just it's not just a rote performance, but you're taking it to heart. And guarding means you're taking responsibility. You're not saying, oh, yeah, this is what Hashem says, so I do it because I have to. You're saying this is the right thing to do. This is correct and proper. You're guarding it.
Why is it here then? My translation here is, if you walk in my ordinances, okay, the chukim, and keep my commandments and do them. Right. So if you walk in my ordinances and keep my commandments, it doesn't say to, oh, I see. That's the same thing. If you walk in my ordinances, it's the same as keeping them.
I would translate it, if you walk in my ordinances and you guard my commandments to do them.
Yeah. So I was going to say that, and why is it wasn't saying keep my commandments and my ordinance, and keep my ordinances and do them. Walk in my ordinances, keep my commandments and ordinances and do them. Doesn't say to. I was going to say it doesn't say to keep the ordinances, the chukim, but if you walk in my chukim is the same thing, I suppose.
Chukim are things that we do,
but don't know what they mean, why, or what they're about. The intricacies of them. If we know the commandments.
Well,
yes.
I wouldn't say that. I was going to say that there are things that we wouldn't do if Hashem hadn't commanded us to do them.
Mm. But that we have. But
so the question is,
yeah.
Do these things? Are we treating these things as a bunch of nonsense? That doesn't have any real meaning to us. We're just doing them. Or are we treating these things as important agents in forming our worldview?
Well, I take it slightly differently in that we do accept them as being important. After all, Hashem gave them to us, so they would be relevant to us, regardless of whether we understood them or not. And that's the point, is that we don't understand them like we understand other. We understand keeping Shabbos, but we don't understand walking in between the parts and other things like that. We just don't understand that. But we know that they're important. There's no question about that. That's not a question. There's not a question about them at all. The only thing is, what are they about? What do they really mean? How do they relate to us, perhaps? But that's how I take it. That Hashem gave them to us. Great, full stop. But we don't understand them as we understand other parts. Therefore, they're chukim.
Okay, all right. I'll tell you what. Let's start looking at Rashi. Let's see how Rashi approaches the pasuk here.
Oh.
Okay. If you will go in my statutes. So the English.
oh,
Interesting. Oh, it says go. No, it says go in the English here. Okay. Yachol zeh kiyum ha-mitzvos. You might be able to think that this refers to the fulfillment of the commandments. Kishehu Omer, that when it says the es mitzvosai tish maru, my commandments you will guard, va'asisem osam, and perform them. Hare kiyum hamitzvos amor. Behold, the fulfillment of the mitzvos is being discussed. Ma ani mikayim. What then do I maintain is meant by im behukosai telechu. If you will go in my statutes, shetiu amelim b'Torah, that you should be laboring in the Torah. So that's I think what Rashi is saying is consistent with what I was thinking, which is that you said several times we don't understand them, we don't understand them, we don't understand them. I don't agree. We do understand them. As much as we understand anything, we don't really understand any mitzvah. Thou shalt not steal. We don't have a complete understanding of that, even though it's definitely not a chok. We have a surface level understanding, but in depth, a rabbi could get up and he could talk for an hour about that commandment and reveal to us all kinds of things that we didn't understand. But the point is, whether we understand or not, that we should be amelim, we should be struggling with them. We should be not treating them as, shatnez. I have no clue what that means, but I do it anyway. We shouldn't. Should not be our attitude. Our attitude should be, I want to understand as much as I can.
mm,
I'm gonna treat this as something that Hashem gave me this chok for a reason. For reasons, many reasons. And my job is to make this part of my life and to, as much as I can, to understand what I can.
mhm. Right. I think that's what I said. More or less. Oh, goodness. Excuse me.
Should I go on in the Rashi?
And now let's one hold it.
Well, you mentioned shatnez. Okay. So what the Rav can speak for an hour or two or 20 about thou shalt not steal, but I don't think he could talk more than 5 minutes about shatnez.
Again, it depends what you want him to. It depends what you want him to talk about.
To explain it, to expound.
Excuse me, Roy.
To expound it, as you can expound not stealing.
Well, I mean, stealing. I think stealing is fairly obvious. I mean,
Yeah, but you can talk about it for a long time.
yeah.
You can expound it. You can talk. You can go into it in depth. But
Yeah, well, I mean, the shot is also, wool and flax, and so you can go into the there's the flax is also known as linen. You know that linen, and there's such a thing as called Chinese linen, and even the experts, the extreme experts, have a very difficult time distinguishing between what the Torah calls linen and what the Chinese linen. And for example, I mean, we don't what is exactly linen? I mean, where do you know that that's what the Torah is coming to forbid? So, anyways, you can always there's what I'm not sure if the question is about talking about it. The question is the normal understanding of what a chok is that it's not logically based, meaning stealing. You could logically base a reason for the need to fulfill that commandment of not stealing. Logically based to say that you can't wear flax and wool together, so it's hard to find a logical basis for that. Exactly. If you want to, if it's simply a command of the king, so you don't need logic. The king is commanding, so it doesn't. They're not dependent on logic, right? So, you have the classic case, the Paraduma. Okay, so why should it have to be red? Why can't it be a blue cow? Okay, so they don't make blue cows. So they don't make yellow cows either.
I actually heard a lecture that lasted probably about a half an hour on the Paraduma.
Yeah, there's many things you can discuss about the Paraduma.
There's all kinds of symbolism involved in why he was going into.
Why does it have to be red? So okay, so they don't make yellow and blue cows. So, but why not a white cow? Why shouldn't it be a white cow?
Red is symbolic of a lot of things. Red is symbolic of sexuality and
war.
And war. Good point. And we called the Russians the Reds. It's not a coincidence. And we call Esav Edom, the red one. There's lots of symbolism to red.
Yeah, but again, symbolism. You can find symbolism. You can find symbolism in not stealing. Also, I mean, there's a great.
That's exactly my point.
So
exactly my point. We don't understand either of them really, but we can strive to understand what we can.
Right, but in essence, it's not. The symbolism doesn't dictate logic.
Okay, on that point, you can't talk a lot about Paraduma or other Chukim, but when you talk about them, you're talking about them at the level of what they are, what's in them. For sharpness, you could talk about at length about what's linen and that and so on, but that's at that level. It doesn't go down below that or above that. That's talking about it. So okay, but you're not talking about the intricities of sharpness. Whereas with talking about you should not steal, you can talk about what stealing is and so on like that, and then you can go down a bit further and talk about the morality of it, and go further and talk about how it affects Shemayim and things like that. There you're going deeper and deeper into it. You're not on the surface level on the surface talking about it all the time. You're not talking about. You can talk about the red cow and what it is and that, but can you talk about what it means, why do you need it, and things like that? How does it affect you? No, I don't think you can. I don't think we do know that.
Right. So that's the point. When you want to talk about stealing, so I can give you various logical reasons why it should be a command not to steal, right? Talk about basar b'chal. You can't eat milk and meat.
Mhm.
Now, give me a logical reason why meat and milk should. So you're gonna tell me meat is hot stuff and milk is cold stuff, and you can't mix hot and cold. Okay, very nice, very nice. Even maybe you give me some chemical, nutritional, biochemical understanding of the whole business as well. But the fact that the Kadosh Baruch Hu chose milk and meat, right, to forbid from us, why couldn't he? He could have, just like he Kadosh Baruch Hu picked flax and semer, right? So semer comes from sheep, right? And flax comes from plants, right? Right. So I'll tell you what. Let's make up a new mitzvah that you can't have meat and vegetables. You can't have beef stew.
There goes Shabbos.
There goes Shabbos. What's going to be with children? You have to have fish.
But there is a basis for saying that kashrus is an ethical system, because it says don't cook a kid in its mother's milk. You need to have a sensitivity to the fact that when you in order to eat meat, you have to kill.
Very good, but that's not a logical argument.
I think it's logical.
No, that's not logical. That's a feeling.
Why specifically in milk? Maybe you shouldn't do it in water either. What's the problem? The mother is attached to the milk in some way.
Milk is life-giving. Milk comes from the animal. Milk represents life, and meat represents death. We're separating death and life.
Where the meat represents death?
Yeah,
about that.
Meat is dead.
Milk comes from
Kill
meat.
an animal to get the meat.
Milk comes from meat.
Right.
You don't have meat.
Milk is life.
Milk. So anyway, the symbolisms are very nice and good. It's very nice. It's very on a level of interesting people. That's very nice. The symbolism is very nice, right? And it could even say, but logically, there's no logical necessity that it has to be specifically milk. Maybe you shouldn't cook meat in water. Water is also life. If without water, you need more water than you need milk. If you don't have milk, people will live a whole lifetime without having milk. If you don't have water for 3 days, what happens to you, Roy? Gone with the wind. So now we logically speaking, symbolically speaking, we can't have meat cooked in water, right? Even more so, kol v'chomer. If you want to speak logically, kol v'chomer. Ma'adoch that you can't cook meat in milk because milk is a life source. So kol v'chomer, you can't cook meat in water because water is more of a life source than milk. Correct, Lou? That's the logical progression.
Yes, you are correct. But I would say that doesn't take away the fact that you can assign a logical basis for saying that milk, there was a reason why the Torah says don't cook a kid in its mother's milk. It's connecting you to the two things, that the kid comes from the mother and the milk comes from the mother.
Maybe that if you want to say talking about the kid, maybe that's only as long as it's a kid. Maybe once it's all grown past the life period of a kid, maybe after the first year. So it's only a kid you can't cook in the milk.
Okay. Point out, please, that we're starting to talk about analyzing these things instead of using these things to go forward on the Parsha. We've sidetracked.
Actually, no, because we want to talk about the Rashi here. Rashi says a tremendous chiddush over here. Telechu, Rashi says, if you look again, Yocho zekima mitzvahs. You might think Telechu is fulfilling the mitzvahs. Kushu omer ves mitzvosai tishmoru. That's followed by that the mitzvahs you shall observe, guard. Harikim mitzvahs only. We're talking about the fulfillment of mitzvahs. Ha'amani mekayim im Behukosai. It's talking about the mitzvahs to shmiru, so that you can't say that Behukosai telechu is talking about the theme of the fulfillment of the mitzvah. So it must be hayu amelim b'torah. It has to be that you're a mailing b'torah. That im Behukosai telechu. That means you're a mailing b'torah. You're seriously involved with learning the Torah. So take a look at the next Rashi. You guys part of the im mitzvosai tishmuru. Go ahead.
Okay, and observe my commandments. Havu amelim b'Torah. You should be laboring in the Torah. Al manas lishmor ulakayim. In order to observe and fulfill, or I would say to guard and to fulfill. Kamo Amar, as it says, Ula Madatem Osam Ushmartem La Sosam. You shall study them, and you shall guard to do them.
So the study, the amelis of the Torah, the learning of the Torah, is not theoretical. It's something which needs to be done in order to fulfill that.
Right. Right. So you could say, wait a second. What do I need to study shatnez in order to do it? I know the law is don't mix wool and linen. And this is saying, no, you have to study them in order to do them properly. Even
Right.
the chukim, even the chukim.
Right. There's much that has to be understood for everything has to be understood in its proper way. Exactly. So now let's go to the first. What's the first word of the pasuk?
Im Behukosai telechu.
Oh, so the first word of the pasuk is im. So that's a provisionary phrase. That's something which is a provision.
Right.
So what's that a provision for? So for that you have to go to the next pasuk.
V'nasati gish meichem v'isam v'nasna haaretz yevula v'eitz hasadeh yitain haro. Okay, so I will give or provide rain in their time, and the land will give or provide produce, and the tree of the field will give fruit. So Hashem is setting up a reward system here, it looks like. If we're going to go and do the first pasuk, which is to go in his chukim and to guard his mitzvos and to do them, then we're going to get rain and we're going to get food.
Well, that's not exactly accurate. It has to be that you're a mailing. It has to be that you're a mailing in the Torah.
A mailing means
And your mailis, you're endeavoring in the Torah is on the condition to fulfill it. And if that's going to be done, then you'll have all these.
Right.
And a question here: is it actually a reward, or is Hashem saying, if you do this, then I will release the nature to go forward, to go further? That gives you, that's the key to open the door for these things to continue.
Right, a very good point, Roy. The Chazal say, Turkey Abbas, other places, schar mitzvah b'hai amaleka. The reward for mitzvahs in this world doesn't exist. Right? You don't get rewarded for mitzvahs in this world, because the reward for a mitzvah is something which is spiritual. It's gashmi. It's not gashmius. It's spiritual. It's ruchnius. So you can't give a payment of ruchnius in a physical world. They're two different dimensions. So, according to this, we have to conclude that these are not rewards. Right? Meaning, this is really the way it should be. The way it should be is all these things. You should have the rain, you should have your produce, right? Kadosh Baruch didn't create a world there should be famine and disease and things which disturb people's lives. Kadosh Baruch, like it was in Gan Eden, just like it was in Gan Eden, the Kadosh Baruch created everything, and then in the very end, at the end of creation, he now created Adam and then Chava as well. After everything was there prepared for them, that they should be able to exist, right? For example, I'll give you an extremely ridiculous mashal. Let's say Roy and Lou and you and me and we're gonna work for NASA. We're gonna work for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, right? And we're going to plan a space mission, right? We're gonna put the first person in to space without water and oxygen. So how long do you think that space mission is going to last?
3 to 5 minutes.
How long? 4 or 5 minutes, yes. That's how long you can keep your breath.
Okay, Lou says 3, 4, 5. Okay, won't last too long. Probably won't get too much funding for that mission either, right?
Not very much. Maybe $3 or $4.
To buy the garbage can, right? So does it make sense that the Kadosh Baruch was going to create a world without water and without food, without oxygen, with all the things that we need to live productive lives?
No, it doesn't make any sense. But does it make sense that if we're not learning Torah, those things are going to vanish mysteriously?
Well,
that's the learning the key.
Excuse me, what's key? Go say that again, please.
Learning the Torah is a key.
Right. Okay. And what do you mean by a key?
Learning the Torah is a key that automatically opens all these things that we're looking for. We're talking about.
Oh, so because see that
in Shemaim.
Let's look at the Aboriginals of Australia. When the white people came to Australia, maybe like 500 years ago, I'm not sure exactly when, but a long time ago, they found these people living there. They have absolutely no Torah.
Mhm.
They were completely isolated. But they had food, they had rain, they had produce. How come?
Easy. Hashem could create a world where there's no oxygen, and then the people don't need the oxygen.
But these people needed
And
it,
that,
and they had it.
yeah, because Hashem allowed them to have it, gave it to them.
Why?
They, it says here, they didn't need to. They didn't need to learn Torah to get these things. It's not. That's not them. It's not for them. They had a different, a different reason to be. We have our reason to be. We have our obligations. They have their obligations, and that's that. I mean, if it was so, Hashem, just because we know that we need oxygen, it doesn't mean that Hashem and you and me not needing oxygen.
Right. So
This and then opens up the world, open up Shemaim, open up the world to continue, allows the world to continue to do what it's supposed to do in relationship to us.
right. So the command to learn Torah, that's something which is specifically incumbent upon Klal Yisrael. That began with our acceptance of the Torah, was the Na'aseh V'Nishma. Included in that was that we have to now learn and understand, and on the condition, as Rashi says here very clearly, on the condition to fulfill it, because that's our purpose in life. Our purpose in life is to fulfill the mitzvahs of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Right. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of Lou's question, that the Aborigines, what their purpose in life is, I don't know, maybe to keep the kangaroo population controlled. Someone's got to hunt the kangaroos. I don't know. I'm just guessing. If they didn't have Aborigines, the kangaroos would take over.
Are they chayav in the 7 mitzvahs?
I imagine so. If they're considered to be b'nei Noach, which I imagine they are obligated. Whether they know about it or not, that's another question, right? But assuming that they're part of the b'nei Noach, so they have the obligations of every other, just like any other human being. They're no different than the Irishmen or the Italians or the Mexicans.
So they have an obligation to learn Torah then.
For their obligations, they have to know. It's true. That's right. They're obligated to know and to fulfill and keep to the Torah that Hashem has given them.
So are you saying that this only applies to Jews? This pasuk here about I'll provide the rains, etc. Only applies to Jews?
Yeah, and to a great extent, it's only this relationship of the physical benefits of the world coming into the world, being attached to our learning Torah. That's primarily maybe even, I can't say definitively, but I'd be willing to say almost exclusively applicable to the Jews.
So if there's a place like Australia where there's no Jews, then these principles don't apply. But nevertheless, rain and produce is provided by Hashem to that place because there's no Jews there, I guess.
Right. Well, you could even ask further. All these psukim here, they could only exist in Eretz Yisrael. It may not necessarily true. Let's say even for Jews living in Ukraine, Jews living in Borough Park, Jews living in Mexico City, it may not apply to them. These psukim may specifically be in reference and in relevance to exclusively Eretz Yisrael. I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
The lock is Israel, not Kutzla Eretz.
Yeah.
The key will fit into the lock of Eretz Yisrael, but not into the lock of Kutzla Eretz.
Right.
That's another key.
Correct. That is right. Very true. For example, if you take a look, let's see here. Let's take a look at Pasuk Vav. Take a look at Pasuk Vav for a moment.
V'nasati shalom ba'aretz usha kavtem ve'ein macharid ve'hishbati chaya ra'ah min haaretz v'cherev lo sa'avor be'artzechem. Let's see. I will give peace in the land, and you will lie down, and none will frighten you. And I will cause wild beasts to withdraw from the land, and the sword will not cross your land.
Very good.
Right. So this, I'm more or less convinced this pasuk is in strict reference to Eretz Yisrael.
Right. So, but Hashem is involved in wars that happen in other lands.
The Chazal say, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, there's nothing in the world that doesn't happen in the world it's only in reference to something that has to do with the Jews, right?
So if Russia attacks Ukraine, Hashem is involved in that.
Of course.
Even though it's not Eretz Yisrael.
That's right. But this cause and effect relationship is something which is, I would say, exclusive to Eretz Yisrael rather than to other places.
So if there's a famine in Oklahoma, we're saying that's not related to this?
No, I would say it's unrelated to this cause and effect relationship. It's definitely related in some way or another to the Jews, but it's not related to this cause and effect relationship. You see that for example, the Jews, say 200 years ago, living in the Pale of Settlement, that where the Jews were living was the specific place where all the contention between basically with Russia and the German city states and the other European countries, that was the most contested. This was the most bloody area of Europe during those years, and that's where the majority of Jews lived at the time.
Right.
And at that point, 200, 300, 200, 300 years ago, they were on a fairly high level of observance. I mean, again, I wasn't there. I don't know. I can't testify for that exactly, but it wasn't like at the time of the Holocaust, where they had fallen to terrible levels of disobedience and disrespect. They were highly respectful of Rebbeim and of Torah at that point, individually and collectively, and yet they lived in the most bloodied territories of Europe at the time. And so we don't see that was so. I don't, because that's those things were specific things going on between the non-Jews and the Jews, that part of our gullus, that we was caught in the middle between all what was going on there. So this cause and effect relationship is something which is exclusive to the Jews, and exclusive, I would say, to Israel. Let's see here.
All right. So what can I say at my Shabbos table?
Oh,
Eat up, Batayavon.
okay. So you could say like this, that points out, right? The Amelis Torah is on the condition that we are supposed to fulfill the Torah, right? And the fulfillment of the Torah is our purpose in life. And so if we're fulfilling the Torah, if we're fulfilling our purpose in life, so therefore the cause and effect relationship is part of the Torah itself. When you read these psukim are just telling you, they're revealing to us the cause and effect relationship. Again, you could ask the question like Roy asked, is this considered to be reward? Right? So the answer is that you could speak about this. All these things that you see here mentioned in these psukim, the rains, the produce, the peace, right? Are these things rewards? So the answer is no. The Torah is simply giving us an insight. For our benefit, we should have this insight as to the fact that this is the cause and effect relationship that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is using to interact with the physical world for the benefit of the Jews. And we're getting these things not as rewards, we're getting these things as benefits, because if we're involved with Torah in a high and profound and deep enough level, so then we have all these benefits, because that's only going to make it easier for us to continue to understand more deeply and profoundly what we have to do to fulfill HaKadosh Baruch Hu's wishes. That's what led to the whole, if you know, and I'm sure you do, Rabbeinu Kodesh, Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, decided that it was time to codify the Mishnayos, because the Golus was becoming too disruptive of our learning. We were no longer able to learn on the proper levels, and he was fearful that the Torah would suffer if it wouldn't be codified. Previous to that time, it was forbidden to write it down. It was forbidden to be codified. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi understood that the Golus was becoming too much disruption in our Amelis Torah, and we weren't having peace, we weren't having the produce, we weren't having the rains, there was famines, there's terrible things, wars, and Golus was taking its toll on the Amelis Torah, and that if there was a lack of Amelis Torah, we wouldn't be able to fulfill the Torah properly. And if we're not going to fulfill the Torah properly, that means that the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to be fulfilled in the proper way. The whole purpose of what we're learning here is what Rashi's telling us, where a mailing b'Torah we involves sufficiently deeply and profoundly in the learning of the Torah, and almanas, that we should fulfill the Torah properly, right? Because that's our purpose. right? Again, what the Aborigines' purpose there in the
Outback.
wastelands of Australia is, I'm not sure, right? But we know what our purpose is, right? And if our purpose is to fulfill the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so when we do that, that gives purpose to the whole universe. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the king. The king commanded certain things to be observed, and since it's his kingdom, so we are the servants of the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We fulfill his commands, and we're giving, therefore, purpose and plan to the universe, to the kingdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, and therefore, the purpose of the universe is being fulfilled. So all these things are coming to us not as rewards, but as simply the ability for us to function properly in trying to understand Hashem's Torah in the best and most deepest possible way. And when we have all these things, peace and produce and rains in their times, so all those things combine to allowing us to do what we have to do to learn Torah properly in order we can fulfill the Torah properly. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu's command is, that he's the king of the universe, he created the universe, and he wants us to do that. So we're able to do that. And these things are therefore not going to be considered to be rewards. These are simply byproducts, consequences of our fulfilling the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and to make it easier for us to fulfill his will. So you could probably think of other things to say along these lines while you're having your chicken soup and all the good food that I'm sure the families are preparing for Shabbos. And yeah, that's something you could say on Shabbos table. Okay, Yetz Hashem. That should be good enough, and hopefully we can see such a wall at the beginning of the week. Oh, beginning of the week on Yom Rishon, I have an appointment at 10 o'clock. I have an appointment at 10 o'clock, so I'm going to have to cut the shear early at 9:30. I'll have to probably stop around 9:30, 20 to 10.
Okay.
Yeah, just
So no second share, just half the first share.
Probably not, right? Probably not. Unless I get back in time. If I happen to get back in time, then, but I don't think so. It's probably a little bit risky to plan on having the second share.
Well, the second share only goes until 10:30. If your appointment is at 10,
yeah,
not likely to be back by 10:30.
Yeah, I doubt it. Unless it really gets really quick.
It's a doctor appointment?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll probably wait a good 10-15 minutes anyway before you.
Okay, in any event, just to keep in mind that we'll have to cut things a little bit short on Sunday. All right, everyone should have a good Shabbos.
We'll suffer, but it won't be a punishment.
No, you should actually keep learning. Don't just because if I'm not here, you shouldn't give up on the learning. You should maybe do Chazorah. You take the Mr. Brewer and do Chazorah, or whatever, or maybe
That's a good point.
Yeah. Okay, very good. You should have a wonderful day, a good Erev Shabbos, and again, hope to see you both on Sunday.
All right, Rabbi. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Have a good day, Roy.
You too. Good Shabbos.
Thank you, Roy.
Good Erev Shabbos. Good Erev Shabbos. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.